Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadresu. Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke. Bhaktir Vaivati Naistiki. Okay, today we're reading from a new chapter, the Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Of course, it's the very first sloka. See if I can find some glasses.
How many glasses I buy? They're all broken.
Yeah.
And then this box, the tissue box, mysteriously, 1 a week or they're gone. Every time I buy it, turn around, it's gone.
I put some dates in the kitchen last week too, right by the plates. So in the morning when I came from Mongolian, I put them in the refrigerator, and they were gone.
I'm surprised everybody. I'm fixing to put some cameras everywhere. Then the big container of ghee, you won't believe how more than half a gallon of ghee, it's gone and we couldn't find it. We looked and looked, somebody took them out as trash and put it outside. Thank God we went and opened it.
The ghee I had all around
Yeah, that's why we don't do stuff like that.
Chichukeki maybe.
We just happened to go outside and look and it's just sitting out there in the trash.
I had to talk to Chid about that. I mean, it was in the icebox. You wouldn't have trash in the icebox.
No, we took it out because it was too hard to cook when it's so hard like that.
Oh, okay.
So we put it by the oil. It was sitting by the oil.
Probably
Didn't even
whoever
open it.
takes
Just took it out.
the compost out probably.
No, he never takes the compost out. We do. It's always trash.
Somebody did it.
Somehow or other it went out.
Okay, is it on the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to write because I don't have any pen and can't see well.
Okay. Shri Sukha Uvacha.
Sri Sukha Vacha.
Evametam nigaditam.
Evametam nigatitam.
Prishtavan yad bhavan mama. Ninam yan niyamananam. Manushesu manishinam.
Manushesu manishinam.
Shri Sukha Uvacha.
Sri Sukha Vacha.
Evametam nigaditam.
Evametam nigatitam.
Prishtavan yad bhavan mama.
Prishtavan yad bhavan mama.
Nrinam yan mriyamananam.
Nirnam yam ridniyanam.
Manushesu manisinam.
Manushesu manishinam.
Shri Sukha Uvacha.
Sri Sukha Vacha.
Evametam nigaditam.
Evametam nigatitam.
Prishtavan yad bhavan mama.
Prishtavan yad bhavan mama.
Nrinam yan mriyamananam.
Niyam yam nirninamanam.
Manushesu manishinam.
Manushesu manishinam. Shri Sukovacha
Srisukuvacha
Evametam Nigatitam
Evametam Nigaritam
Prishtabanyad Bhava Mama
Prishtabanyad Bhavan Mama
Nrinam Yanrinina Mananam
Nrinam Yanriyamananam
Manushesu Manishinam
Manushesu Manishinam
Shri Sukavacha
Srisukovacha
Evametam Nigaritam Prishtabanyad Bhavan Mama Nrinam Yanriyamananam Manushesu Manishinam. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, Shri Sukuvacha.
Shri Sukovacha
Shri Sukadeva Goswami said,
Shri Sukadev Goswami
Evam,
Evam
so, etat,
Etat
all these,
all these
nigaditam,
Nidikam
answered, Prishtavan,
Prishtavan
as you inquire, yat, what? Bhavan, your good self, Mama,
Mama
unto me,
unto me
Nrinam,
Nrinam
of the human being,
of the human being
yat,
Yat
one, Mriyamananam,
Nrinam
on the threshold of death,
on the threshold of death
Manushesu,
Manushesu
among the human beings,
among the human beings
Manisinam,
Manishinam
of the intelligent men.
of the intelligent men.
Translation. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said,
Shri Sukadeva Goswami said,
Maharaj Parikshit,
Maharaj Parikshit,
as you have inquired from me
as you have inquired from me
as to the duty
as to the duty
of the intelligent man
of the intelligent man
who is on the threshold of death,
who is on the threshold of death,
so I have answered you.
so I have answered you.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. Srila Prabhupada's Divine Purport. In human society all over the world, there are millions and billions of men and women. And almost all of them are less intelligent because they have very little knowledge of spirit soul. Almost all of them have a wrong conception of life, for they identify themselves with the gross and subtle material bodies, which they are not, in fact. They are situated in different high and low positions in the estimation of human society. But one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own self, beyond the body and the mind, all his activities in human life are total failures. Therefore, out of thousands and thousands of men, one may inquire about his spirit self and thus consult the revealed scriptures like Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. But in spite of reading and hearing such scriptures, unless one is in touch with a realized spiritual master, he cannot actually realize the real nature of the self, etc. And out of thousands and hundreds of thousands of men, someone may know what Lord Krishna is in fact. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text 122 and 123, it is said that Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, prepared the Vedic literatures and the incarnation of Vyasadeva for reading by the intelligent class of men in human society, which is almost totally forgetful of the genuine relation with Krishna. Even such an intelligent class of men may be forgetful in their relation with the Lord. The whole Bhakti Yoga process is therefore a revival of the lost relation. This revival is possible in the human form of life, which is obtained only out of the evolutionary cycle of 8,400,000 species of life. The intelligent class of human being must take a serious note of this opportunity. Not all human beings are intelligent, so the importance of human life is not always understood. Therefore, manisinam, meaning thoughtful, is particularly used here. A manisinam person, like Parikshit Maharaj, must therefore take to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and fully engage himself in devotional service, hearing, chanting, etc., of the holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all Hari Katamrita. Hari Katamrita. This action is especially recommended when one is preparing for death. This action is especially recommended when one is preparing for death. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the first sloka, 3rd chapter, 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, pure devotional service. The final verse of the chapter, 2nd chapter, which we just concluded, it reads, those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarine message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life, known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. I'm going to read that purport also. The sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc., in sufficient quantities to feed and care for the human race of the world, as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or use steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfection of thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in the age of Kali, when they have lost their perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Katamrita mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarine message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topic in relation with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc. are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of Bhagavad Gita and later Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Sukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of bhakti yoga, directly accepted, is suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without anyone's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat Rupa conception of the Lord. And by practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being free from material entanglement. And that was the final purport of the second canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord in the Heart. Today's verse again, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Pritchett, you have inquired from me as to the duty of an intelligent man who is on the threshold of death. So I have answered you. And again in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is again stressing Hari Katam Rita, Kata Rita, Katam Rita. Hearing the chanting about Lord Hari. And that is the purifying method. Unfortunately, we get all, generally speaking, all hung up in the world and the great necessity to gain capital or wealth in the form of money, which is produced by the exploitation of the resources of the earth. And we have a civilization that competes like that, controlling the water, the air, and controlling the air in the sense that they're polluting it with so much industrial development, and so to try to get a little bit of it pure, they try to control all the waste they put into the air, and still it's contaminated. And the same with the soil. In this way, in the name of gaining wealth, they are destroying the basic necessities of life that everybody can be happy with if they simply have the understanding that human life is meant for living simply consuming simply the bare necessities of life: food, shelter, clothing, water, and good air. If that's taken away, then we can have all the motor cars and big skyscrapers and various other forms of sense comfort that modern civilization offers. But without purified air, water, and soil, consequently good food, then how can people be happy? We don't see that people are any happier. We all know that people are physically sick and mentally ill, what to speak of spiritually. So, but this is why they don't listen to Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. Instead, they're all wrapped up in so much stupid scientific and science fictional stuff on a daily basis, and politics dominates the news, and economic development, this money-making thing of producing something and trying to sell it to someone else. Before, they say life was hard because we had to, do our own laundry, with water in a bucket and stone. But, just to make a washing machine and just to plug it in requires such an endeavor. So many generators to generate the electricity. And then you have to pay for it, which means you have to go to work some kind of way to make the money. In this way, they're just trapped by all their so-called scientific inventions. And the way people lived 200 years ago was simply a lot simpler and more comfortable. Maybe we need to go back 300 or 400 years before the whole industrial development started. But, there was a basic way people lived forever, as human beings. We had to clean our own clothes with at least fresh water. Sometimes Nimai Pandit would create a disturbance by stirring up all the mud at the bottom of the Ganges. Went out there playing, and all the Brahmins and other people there would become upset because you can't take water when there's all kinds of mud in the river. But, Nimai would play so hard that they would stir up all the dirt, all the soil at the bottom of the water, and so the clear river water would then be full of soil, and everybody would be upset with Nimai Pandit, for doing such a thing. But basically, the water was pure. Everybody could have pure water. And the air, there was no problem breathing. People's lungs were good, unless they just messed it up by, smoking hashish and messed up their brains by drinking alcoholic beverages. Other than just like they do today, but still, at least they could breathe clean air. And the food produced was good because the soil was good, generally speaking. At least in a place where, you had fertile soil. The deserts, of course, aren't going to produce much unless there's irrigation. So, our modern civilization is just a vain attempt to try to enjoy this world. They have no understanding of the purpose of life, and consequently, they're upset with the phenomena of death. And it's already upsetting enough when people lose people that are dear to them, relatives, parents or spouse or children. Those things are already upsetting enough. But you throw into the mix the bodily conception of life, and people's vision of life is so distorted that they try to find pleasure in intoxication. And it only makes the matter worse. In the long run, it only makes the matter worse. So Prabhupada, he's pushing us that the purpose of life can be fully realized through hearing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and Srimad Bhagavatam, the names of the Lord and the pastimes of the Lord. In this way, people become purified. And Prabhupada, he pushes it so much that he says if we don't become purified, then we must just be a pseudo-devotee at the end of the last paragraph of the previous verse. And, so what can help us then if we're just content with such a life? No, the fact of the matter is that Krishna is all pure. And nothing dark, no darkness can stand before him. So even our dark heart in relation with Krishna becomes purified. And one becomes a pure devotee of Krishna. And consequently then, we can just sort of nonchalantly go through this life and tolerate the whatever upsetment naturally is there in this world. And we can remember that the main purpose is to fix our minds on Krishna. And we can do that to the best of our ability, especially when we see that death is approaching. The older we get, we see death is approaching. And if one dies young and gets some terminal disease, they can also see death is approaching. One may not have many seconds, but in a fatal accident, many times you can see death is approaching. Or if you are seriously injured, you can see death is approaching. So at that time, one who's trained, who's had the opportunity to hear from Prabhupada, to hear from the Acharyas, we can understand, I gotta fix my mind on Krishna. Good thing I practiced a little bit. Those people who never practiced, who never bothered with it, what will they fix their minds on? Only what comes into their mind. Their mind is not controlled. It's just a vessel of whatever they've put in it during their life and previous lives. So I don't know, Spider-Man will come into it, or they'll cry over losing their life and their children or their spouses or their parents, their families, their friends. They are just attached to what was always temporary. It's always temporary. There's nothing permanent here. Nothing. So from the very beginning we are urged to fix our mind on what is permanent. And that is Krishna. And then to utilize the natural things of this temporary world that are meant for human beings. We can breathe the good air. We can drink the good water. We can eat good food. We can cover ourselves and have a shelter, to stay warm or cool. And, and then just do the common work as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. People who grow things and who are good at assisting and helping, and those who can attempt to administrate the wealth of the world for the good of all, and those who can teach this science. That people, we can live a happy life together. Unfortunately, that was all destroyed. And it's only making its comeback due to Lord Chaitanya. It was destroyed by this exploitation of all these sense-gratifying imperialists trying to create their empires. All of them. Just fighting with one another to control the resources of the world and to make their clans and nations and families superior to others by harnessing the power of others for their gratification. So Lord Chaitanya, by his Sankirtan movement, with making a humble attempt to put an end to it by reminding people that, this is not the purpose of life, to try to enjoy in this world. It's going to do nothing but pollute us and make life more difficult and painful during this lifetime, what to speak of afterward when we have to suffer all the sinful reactions. We're just trying to wake up the world, as Prabhupada would say, by giving them Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, by letting them hear the mantra. And, ourselves practicing it, having faith in it, that, this is what's important, not just earning money. That can be done anywhere, at any time. But, who takes the time, to practice Bhakti Yoga? Very few. Very few. But, still our duty is to try to encourage that and, excite that. And you see, this kind of doing a fabulous job of that, an unbelievable job. Nobody would have expected Srila Prabhupada and his society to have such success. People familiar with it were to some degree envious of Prabhupada's success. Who would have expected it? And then it continues to grow. And still, people will find so much fault with it. Just because, why? Because of some faults. But the point is that the movement is still expanding all over the world. And it can do more, but it requires the devotees becoming pure in heart and taking this hearing and chanting seriously, distributing this knowledge seriously to others. And then we don't know how Lord Chaitanya is going to make the world better, but it's in God's hands. We can just perform the duty that Prabhupada urged us to perform, just as he performed the duty his Guru Maharaj urged him to perform. So, the duties are not that hard. They're fairly simple. People can print and publish and distribute books. They can grow food. They can take care of cows. And, they can do all these things. They can, maintain the temples. They can make a humble attempt to teach others. They can, they can even try to earn money for the movement. Whatever people are doing, they can do to assist this great movement. To give charity to this movement is ultimately beneficial for people. Whereas to give charity to save the whales, even an important thing like rebuilding the Louisiana coastline, which had been destroyed by their beloved oil industry. What good will it ultimately do for the soul? Again, their whole conception of life is wrong, because what is their faith in the soul? Their faith in the soul is so weak that they don't even recognize it in their secular school system. They don't even recognize it. They're not 100% sure about the self and life. And it's just an unending reading of jnana or speculative knowledge to try to understand life. Because they're simply thrown, religion, up to the dogs, practically speaking. They've given God a bad name, and that way, that's the way they're training their citizens. Still, what can be done? We have, at least in different parts of the world, we have the right to propagate the knowledge, to teach people the knowledge, and we see that so many religions are doing that, and sometimes to the detriment of human society due to their secular feelings. But at least, we have the right, to carry out Prabhupada's work of propagating this message. It may take time, but gradually, intelligent people will take it up. And, we can only have faith in Lord Chaitanya's power and prophecy that it will do good for the world and help create a better time in the world, a better age in the world, where people can actually be more friendly to one another and everybody actually take pleasure in chanting God's names and hearing such books as the Srimad Bhagavatam and understanding the real purpose of life and properly preparing for their own demise from this world. Anyhow, it's almost 8:30. Any comments or questions? Okay, so I guess we'll be ready for the rain. They said 2 to 3 inches in a day, maybe 2 inches at night. So a lot of rain, but it's not. I don't think we're going to get all the flooding like we had in New Orleans. They had 10 inches in 2 hours, and the pumping system couldn't handle it, so they had so many problems. But it's not going to be like that here. We may get some torrential downpours.
But the concern is about tree branches.
Yeah, it's 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. There'll be some branches.
Some of them might be, if they're like oak.
Yeah, rotten, come down.
That could be a problem. Do we have a generator for that pump? Backup generator?
Yeah, Nanda will have to check it though, because there's no battery down. It hadn't been started in over a year or more. So, all that needs to be checked. But no, I don't even expect the electricity to go out. But if it does, it could possibly, that could happen if a branch falls on a wire or something.
Unfortunately, I
But it's not going to be, the storm's not going to be anything severe,
I didn't even know it was coming. I thought the storm was the other night. And then I go to Walmart yesterday, and everybody's scrambling for water. What's going on? Oh, didn't you hear about Barry? Pop the Barry's coming.
It's no big deal. I hope my words don't prove me wrong, but it's really no big deal.
But for New Orleans, maybe not for, but New Orleans, this kind of storm a few years ago went over Houston, and it just sits there, and it rains.
Right.
It happened in downtown Houston, the best part, not a flood area, the best money area, and it made a disaster. And they were saying, okay, before Katrina, the river was at 3 feet, and the max is like 20 feet. And then it'll start, that's when you really start the levee system and the pumps have to start working. So right now, it's at 16. And that gives it only 4 feet. And we've got a storm that could potentially give us, 8, 10 inches easily. So it's really going to test a whole new levee system.
Yeah. They can open the spillways and, that creates its own problems, but it keeps the water from coming over the levee.
What was really interesting, they said that, and this is after Katrina, right? After they talked about, getting new equipment and stuff. He said, the fellow for the water and sewage, he said, well, we have 90, altogether it's like 125 pumps or something. And 99 of them will be working, but they're old and antiquated. And so they'll be tested. I mean, how is that possible after Katrina? how is it that we still have old pumps? We don't have new pumps. We got,
I guess there just wasn't enough money.
oh, well, there's enough money to give tax cuts to the corporations and the billionaires. But there's not enough money for the people's, you know,
Maintain the infrastructure.
the infrastructure. No.
Hmm. Alrighty, it's the Ekadasi day today.